Are you in the market for a home in or around Mountain House? Do you want a knowledgeable realtor that specializes in Mountain House homes? If so, then look no further. Drew Jacobson of the Mountain House Real Estate Group is your man. Licensed since 2004, Drew knows Mountain House. Voted Resident of the Month in November 2013 for his volunteer efforts in the community, Drew's reputation is well known for coaching and/or sponsoring Mountain House flag football, Mountain House cheer, Mountain House Hurricanes, Mountain House youth basketball, Mountain House Little League, donations to the local school foundations, and is the first paid inaugural member of the Mountain House High School Athletic Booster Club, supporting athletes at the new Mountain House High School. Drew has recently supported community events such as the Mountain House Sweetheart Dance, the Mountain House Royal Affair, and the upcoming Mountain House Kite Run. Drew says it best: "We treat every client's purchase or sale as if it were our own. Your success is our success." Drew Jacobson, your Mountain House Realtor.
Governmental kind of thing that we're going to present to you tonight is something that is near and dear to the hearts of almost everybody here in Mountain House, because many of you moved here for the purpose of the schools. So I'm going to turn the microphone now over to Superintendent Dr. Nicholas, who represents our very good Leverageville Unified School District.
Good evening. Before I start speaking tonight, I'd like to acknowledge our board president, Mr. David Pombo. And a shout out to Jim Lamb, who's sporting a Mountain House High School Mustang Spirit Wear, which is available through our Sports Boosters program for anybody who'd like to also look as nice as he does this evening. Tonight I'm going to talk a little bit as a brief overview of the Common Core. If you haven't heard of that, the assessment system that California's been utilizing for the last 14 years has essentially been grandfathered out, and we're starting a new era, and that era is called Common Core, or Common Core State Standards. Now with change, go ahead. With change comes a lot of anxiety, and in our outreach to our community, some of the questions we're hearing is, well, how can we help our children prepare for this Common Core? We hear it's a lot different, it's more challenging. Other questions we're hearing about is, our test scores have been so high, and our children's test scores have been so high, we're worried that our scores individually, or our kids' scores, or our school or school district scores are going to go down. What are we going to do about that? And that's a very real anxiety out there. It is a big and systemic change. And third, the question I hear the most is how long will it take to make the transition from the No Child Left Behind driven California Standards Test to the federal government state-adopted program called the Common Core State Standards? Well, I'm not going to be able to answer all those questions for you tonight, but what I do want to do is give you a general overview. And over the next series of months, we're going to be rolling out information both on our website and have some summer workshops for families and community members to try to really explain what this new Common Core era is. So I have a short video, it's about 3 minutes long. I think it does a good job explaining what it is.
Like it or not, life is full of measuring sticks. How smart we are, how fast we are, how well we can, compete. But up until now, it's been pretty hard to tell how well kids are competing in school and how well they're going to do when they get out of school. We like to think that our education system does that. But when it comes to learning what they really need to be successful after graduation, is a girl in your neighborhood being taught as much as her friend over in the next one? Is a graduating senior in, say, St. Louis as prepared to get a job as the graduate in Shanghai? Well, it turns out the answer to both of these questions is no. Because for years, states have been setting different standards for what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. That's making it too hard to know if our kids are really doing well enough overall, and if they can really compete for a job someday. What we really need are clear goals. That's where the Common Core State Standards come in. They're like a total sea change in education. Consistent, strong, clear benchmarks for English language arts and math. Here's how it works. You can think of kindergarten through 12th grade like a giant staircase. Each step is a skill your child needs to learn before stepping up to the next one. But right now, too many kids aren't really confident with like 2 plus 2 before they have to move on to 2 times 2. We need more focus on the skills that help them move up the stairs, or they can slip up and fall behind. And there's another problem. What if everyone's stairs were made at different heights? Well, here we go again. They are. So, a boy in Seattle who's writing an A in English literature could be getting a C on his Chicago friend's staircase. Oops. We need to create consistent steps in education too. So first, each standard creates a landing on the staircase, a stop along the way as your child heads toward high school graduation. Each stop is a chance for every parent and teacher to focus on the skills their students are supposed to know at that step, no matter the zip code, language, or race. And more importantly, each standard makes sure all students are learning what they need to know to get to graduation and beyond. Because something like counting to 100 leads to understanding dollars and cents, which eventually leads to understanding how to manage a budget. Secondly, the standards are consistent from school to school, and they match up against international standards too. Now we know how we're doing compared to just about everyone. So even though local communities will still design their own curriculum, with the same rules, everybody can compete on the same kind of staircase. But standards aren't learning. That's why we need teachers, parents, and students to help make that happen. By working together to help kids meet these standards. The world's getting more and more competitive every day. But now, when our kids get to the top of their staircase, they can have way more options on where their life goes from there. Clear goals, confident, well-prepared students. That's the Common Core state standards.
So that's a general overview of the Common Core. Obviously, it's going to be a lot more challenging to roll out school district by school district across the state and across the nation. And the Common Core does not come completely exclusive of controversies. So there is a raging debate out there about the validity of the assessment and the choice of standards and the like. However, it's my job as superintendent of the school district and our school board, the governing agency, to make decisions to prepare for the Common Core because the first state assessment is spring of 2015. So I want to go very briefly over a couple of the key things that are going on. First of all, the year 2013-14, the one that's coming to an end here this month, is the end of the No Child Left Behind era and the end of the California Standards Test. The passage of Assembly Bill 484 was the end of the English Language Arts and Math portion of the California Standards Test, and there will be no reported score for any student in our school district, which is what people are used to. There's a moratorium this year. Instead, every school district in the state is piloting, and in the process of finishing piloting the new California version of the California Standards Test to test the state system. And finally, the biggest change that people need to be aware of is the bubbling in of the paper-pencil test is being replaced with a computer adaptive test. So very significant changes beyond that, but those are the big ones for 2013-14. Some new key vocabulary. You're going to hear words like anchor standards, which are the stairs you saw in the video, rigor, higher order thinking, college and career readiness, 21st century skills. In English language arts, the focus is on complex text, meaning kids are going to be reading 50% fact-based material and 50% based on the creative stuff that we all went to school with. And math is going to focus in not just on getting the answer right or math application, but it's also going to be focused on student understanding of math concepts. The distributive property of equality is what you do on this side, you do on that side. But kids are going to also have to understand why you distribute that way and the purpose and function. So in 2013-14, academically in preparation for the Common Core, the district passed in December of 2013 a strategic plan with 5 areas of concentration. We brought in a computer-adaptive student assessment system called Measures of Academic Progress, where we could get data on students individually, grade levels, by school, and as a district. We brought in a computer-based strategic support, which means that the students get on time on a computer on a program that addresses their needs at their ability level, and both that strategic support and MAP talk to each other. And finally, we've been putting systems in place where teachers can work and talk as teams, both grade level teams and as a site team, to look at the data and make decisions instructionally. Other things that we're doing in preparation for the Common Core, it's going to be a significant shift in teaching. So we have groups of identified teacher design teams designing what are called units of study, which are based on the Common Core standards, the words rigor, higher order thinking, and anchor standards. And there's about 40 teachers that have been identified, and they began that process, and next year we will roll out the first designed units of study. Teams of administrators are walking classrooms across the district and discussing about best practices and instruction in our classrooms so we can model the best and provide feedback in areas where we see we need to get better. Computer-based, internet-focused curriculum coming through with new teaching strategies. New terms you're going to hear are blended learning and flipped curriculum. And finally, we're discussing electives that tie to the career pathway programs at our new high school, Mountain House High School, and tie those to the elective programs in our middle schools. Finally, the other and final significant change this year was the change in the California budgeting system, which replaced the old 30-year-old system with what's called local control funding formula and the local control accountability plan, which I addressed at a previous meeting. So finally, what I can say to the community is this is just a brief overview to tell you what the district's done to prepare for this transition, to give a very brief introduction to the Common Core, and that we will be having information going out from our website through our Facebook page about the Common Core to the community. And finally, we will set up a series of parent and community workshops this summer so folks can get a chance to put their hands on it and get more specific questions answered as we make the transition to the first assessment, which is again spring of 2015. And with that, I say thank you and have a good evening.
One quick question.
Anything from Mountain House High School?
Really quick.
Spirit work.
What happens to API scores under Common Core? Do they still exist after the moratorium, or is it replaced by something completely different and unique?
So the question is, what happens to the API score? It's a simple answer is they're recalibrating what the API score is. So some of the old parts will stay, and there will be new parts tied to the Common Core state standards. The district's bragging rights as the highest performing unified school district in San Joaquin County is based on the California Standards Test, and our API score is the highest amongst the unified school districts at 872. So there's going to be an API score, but it's going to be different, and they haven't really explained all the specific
Will it
details.
still be called an API, or will it be some?
As far as I know, as of right now.
Thank you, Superintendent Nicholas. Okay, for those of you in the audience, I'm sure there's probably no one here who's ever wanted to report something to the Community Services District, like a broken sprinkler head or a pothole or anything like that. Nobody's interested in that, right? So we can just let you know. Kendall Smith is here from our new service request system, and it's called Go Request. And it is not only online, it is also smartphone enabled. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to him. He's going to show you how you can use it and walk you through downloading it onto your smartphones.
Thank you. My name is Kendall Smith. I'm from Government Outreach, and we are the provider of a customer relationship management system, which you are the customer. So if you have a broken sprinkler head like Jan told you about here, you can easily report that. Now, you can report that today with an email, but there's going to be a new way to do that. So if you go through, there's several different ways. There's one, there's a new link on the website. How many people have been to the new website recently? A few people. On the left-hand side, there is a new link there called Services, and this is one way that you can let Mountain House, the Services District, know about an issue that you want to report, whether it's tall weeds in somebody's yard, if you want to get into that, whether there's some service maintenance, a pothole, street lights out. You can click on that link. That's one way of going to that. And there's also a mobile application that you can download for free, and it's available in the Apple App Store or Google Play. It's called Go Request. And when you run that application, don't everybody get their phones out right now, do that here. But when you run the application, one of the things it may ask you, are you in San Joaquin County or Mountain House? Now, San Joaquin County is using the same system, so if you go outside the boundaries, they're going to be using the same application. If you go to Tracy, they use the same application, Antigua, Stockton, they're all using the same application. So if you're running around driving the city, you can report issues that belong to those cities and not Mountain House. So there's also a few key components. There's a knowledge base of answers to frequently asked questions. And here's a little screenshot of the web interface here. So if you go through and when you're taking through and prompted through, there's some screens, and there's some fields maybe required that you have to fill in. One of the things that will happen is a map will appear, and you'll be able to move the pinpoint around. You ever want to pinpoint the exact location of an issue that you saw? Well, you can do that on the web now. So you can actually drag the pinpoint around or type in an address. That's one way of doing it. The other one is, let's go to the next screen here. Okay, now one of the things you can do, flash by rather quickly there, but there is an option to fill in your contact information. Now I'm going to encourage you to fill in your contact information because one of the times, oftentimes staff needs to follow up and ask you additional information. And if you provide your contact information, then they can easily get back to you and ask you questions, and you can use your email or you can use the web interface for that. That's one way of doing it. Now, one of the things, after you submit an issue, there's an automatic account. You'll have your own personal account if you're using the web interface. So you'll be able to log in later on and provide any information or any additional reports. So you don't have to keep entering your email address in every time, your contact information. The system will remember who you are. This is the great part here. There's actually a survey you can fill out at the very end. So one of the things when the Mountain House and Services District processes your service request and it's completed, there's going to be an automatic confirmation. It's going to let you know. So if you're on the web, you get an email or notification. If you're on a smartphone and you have the application downloaded, you'll actually see a little alert on your smartphone. So for those of you that have an iPhone or an Android, you can download the application. And at the very end, you'll be able to complete a survey. And the survey is going to ask you some questions like, what do you think of the service you just received? Was it prompt? Did they actually correct the problem? And when you fill out that survey, it's actually going to come back to the person who actually processed your service request. And it's also going to go to the head of the department. So the head of the department is going to get your feedback here. Now this is actually a great thing here because it's a chance for you to give feedback and the services district can actually improve their service based upon your comments. There's just a couple things to the screens. I'm going to show you just a couple screens that the employee might see. They basically have an inbox. Now this is great. Instead of emails, it's actually going into the database, so nothing will ever get lost here. So they're going to have history. They'll be able to do research, like how many times have we fixed this particular fire hydrant that's been leaking or the street light here. So they're going to have maintenance histories, and they can do intelligent decisions in the future for planning work. A few other things on the staff side, they can see the map and the description of the problem here. They can link duplicate requests. Sometimes some people report the same problem multiple times, or different people will report it. So staff has tools to become more efficient, and they'll be able to process them as a group here. So it's going to make staff more efficient in providing the service as well. And here's the screenshot of the application. So when you go ahead and run it, there's a couple options there. New issue and track issues. The very first time you run it, it's going to try to detect your location based upon the satellite signal. Now, there's a lot of steel in this building here, so it has a little hard time detecting where you're at. But if you're outside, it's actually going to come up, and one of the choices should be Mountain House for you. And then you want to make sure that it goes into that. If you see the San Joaquin or Tracy, depending on if you're on the border, don't choose Tracy because they're not going to fix your problem with the sprinkler in front of your house. A couple more screenshots. You can provide your contact information as optional if you wanted to be followed up with. Staff can ask you additional questions. There's a little map there you can drag your finger around. It's a very easy application to use. If you're driving home, don't take your camera phone out and try to take a picture while you're driving or anything like that here. So you want to make sure that you're doing it in a safe condition here, so you can actually report it when you get home and pinpoint the location that way. And then you'll get a confirmation at the end if you're successful. So that's kind of a little overview of some of the services. Now there's some other options at the, you can track your issues, follow up, kind of see what the status is. Anything that staff, and if they have a question for you or they close out your issue, then you'll be able to see that directly on your smartphone as well. Here's your history of things that you previously submitted. So if you've taken a picture, it'll actually give you a little thumbnail view and you can take a look at the previous case history. Here's kind of an example of a staff map here. They'll be able to see things a little more detailed here, see locations, similar issues grouped together here, so it's more of a staff efficiency tool from the side. And that's it.
We're really excited to get this up and running because it is a great management tool. There's also reports that we'll be able to look at. And one thing that's really important is as the staff starts to work on issues, you're going to be able to see that they're working on it. They're going to have a status report. So for example, I know that there was a broken swing set in one of the parks, and it was there for quite a long time, and a lot of people were concerned, and they thought we were not listening to them. Well, it turns out that the piece had to be ordered from Germany. So we will be able to update that and say part on order from Germany or whatever, so that you can see that we're not ignoring your issues. It's just that it doesn't always get to be get installed as quickly as possible. So once the part comes in, then you have to contract with a certified, thank you, State of California, I hope you're listening. You have to contract with a certified playground installer, which can take 2 to 3 weeks at least to get them out. So it's not that we're ignoring you, it's just that sometimes the hoops that we are required to jump through for safety and regulatory purposes are not necessarily that quick. So, thank you for that introduction. If anybody has any questions, he'll be around for a little while. He can demo it, he can help you load it down on your smartphone and get you all set up.